Morning, everyone. I have three things for you today: getting wounds, licking your wounds, and getting rid of your wounds. Today's gospel is all about wounds. Jesus shows up to his disciples, showing them the sufferings and the wounds that he had just went through a few days prior. To understand what this whole passage means that we just heard, you have to understand what it means to be wounded. The Latin word for wounds, plural, is vulnera. Vulnera. What does that sound like? Or at least that's the beginning of the word? Vulnerable. To be vulnerable means to be woundable, that you're able to be wounded. Jesus became incredibly vulnerable last week when he got arrested, when he got beaten, he got scourged, and he got nailed to a cross. All of us have been wounded in some way. You look at all throughout your past, of your own life. Some of our wounds are caused by the pretty boneheaded things that we've done, right? We can take ownership for those. But some of the wounds have been caused by what others have done to us. Think about all of the different things that you've gone through in your life at the hands of others. Maybe it's bullying, maybe harassment, maybe physical abuse, maybe slander. Someone's tried to bring down your good name. Maybe fights with your spouse, fights with your children, fights with your parents, or fights with your coworkers. Of course, normally when we screw up, we're used to cutting ourselves a break. We say, yeah, that was a boneheaded thing of me to do, but I'm not that bad of a person. I was just having a rough day. But when it's someone else who's done something to us, we never cut them a break. We say, they're just a liar. They're just a thief. They're just a bad person. They're corrupt. That's why they did that to me. And we think that what we suffered at their hands is so immense, so unforgivable, and so needing of revenge on our part, even if it's just us wishing for God to let something bad happen to them. The reality is, though, that Jesus took on a woundedness much greater than the woundedness that you and I can experience. Because Jesus took on all the woundedness of humanity, all the bad things that we've done ourselves and that other people have done to us, and he has taken that on so that we could be healed. Jesus got what we deserved so that we could get what he deserved. And Jesus was wounded just like you and me. But how did Jesus respond to the wounds that he received? Did he respond like you and I do? In other words, did Jesus lick his wounds? What does it mean to lick your wounds? Think about a dog that injures its paw. For the next few hours, everything that dog's going to focus on is its paw, and it's going to keep licking it because it's wounded there. To lick our wounds means to go back to those places of bitterness, resentment, and rage, and to keep focused on it. The author Frederick Buechner once said this: of all the 7 deadly sins, the one that's most fun is anger. Because to lick your wounds, to smack your lips over grievances long past, to roll over your tongue the prospect of bitter confrontation still to come, to savor the last morsel of the pain you're giving back to them. When you and I hold a grudge, when we refuse to forgive, it makes us feel so righteous inside. It makes us feel so wronged to replay that thing that happened to us over and over and over again. It makes us feel that self-pity, that I was wronged, that person was wrong to do what they did. But what happens there? Basically, you're letting that person live rent-free in the house of your heart by letting them in. And now they're in control of your life, and you are imprisoned. When I was younger, we had a dog, and this dog was pretty rowdy, especially in his younger years. And you just couldn't let him roam the house because he was going to cause all kinds of trouble. So you had to keep him in this cage. It was smaller than your average dog kennel. We'd all yell at him, get in your cage, but sometimes it would work, other times it would not. But the one that it always worked for, the one he always listened to, was my father. All my father had to do was yell in a loud, low voice, get in the slammer. And that dog with tail between its legs went right in there. When we are holding resentment and grudges, it's like we're closing ourselves off in the slammer of our own self-pity. And it's there that we lick our wounds. But Jesus did not lick his wounds. Instead, he took his wounds and he showed them to his disciples today. He brought before their very eyes the reality of what happened. He said, yes, this is what happened. True. But instead of getting back at them, Jesus had mercy on them. Here's another Latin word for you. The word for mercy in Latin is misericordia. Comes from two words. Miser, which means a lowly person, one who's poor. And cordia, the word for heart. To have mercy means that to be lowly of heart. When you're merciful towards someone else, it means that your heart goes out to them. Rather than keeping it in here and letting what they did to you be something that gets ruminated in your own heart, your heart goes out to them. You're able to empathize with them, and now you can identify with the perpetrator and say, what is it like to be in their shoes? There's a word that's most often used in the Gospels to refer to the emotions of Jesus. Whenever Jesus confronts lepers or paralytics or anyone else who's suffering a great deal, it says he is moved with compassion, moved with pity for them. The word there does not do it justice. The word actually means his insides are twisted within him. That's how moved he is, out of compassion for these people. Today in the gospel, Jesus has the same compassion on his disciples. Do you think when he shows up to his disciples today, he says, look what you did to me. You deserted me in my most difficult hour. You said that you were my friends. You betrayed me. Don't you ever do that again. What happens when we get betrayed or someone does something to us? That's our reaction, is to let them know it. And if we want them to feel sorry for what they did. But no, Jesus says, peace be with you. Again, peace be with you. He said, I'm not here to get revenge. I'm not here to shove in your face what you've done. All I want for you is peace. And not only that, because Jesus takes it a step further. And what he says next is what gives them the authority to now pass on the mercy he's extending to them. Jesus says, whose sins you forgive are forgiven them. Look at what I have done for you in forgiving you. Now, since you've been forgiven, you must be able to take that mercy and forgive others. It's said that either pain is one of two things. Pain is either transformed or it's transmitted. If the pain you're experiencing is not brought to the light of Christ, if it's not transformed, then it just gets passed on to everybody else, and everyone else gets to feel your rage. Jesus' pain, though, was not transmitted. It was totally transformed. He didn't lick his wounds and seek revenge. He used his wounds to transmit peace now to others. Do you think that Jesus tried to get rid of his wounds? His wounds were very visible. Look at the wounds in his hands, his feet, and in his side. What do we try to do? We think that whenever, maybe sometime in the future, God will get rid of my wounds, whatever childhood things I suffered from, or something yesterday that somebody said to me. God will get rid of those. And in heaven, God will wipe away all of our wounds. But did Jesus get rid of his wounds? No. Jesus shows up here not simply resuscitated from the dead. He is resurrected, meaning that he's in a totally new, glorified state. He's able to show up behind closed doors, behind locked rooms. and he shows them his hands and his side, and the wounds are still there. And that is how Thomas the Apostle recognized Jesus, by his wounds. Jesus says, "Look at my wounds. These are my battle scars. These are the things that show my resilience in the face of trial. These are what prove that God can use even the worst things that can happen to you and turn them into something good." So let's this week think about all the wounds that we've been carrying, whether they're wounds that happened 50 years ago or they just happened yesterday. Has your pain been transformed by Christ, or has it been simply transmitted to others? Has God had mercy on you? Has God's heart gone out to you? And if so, how is he inviting your heart to now go out to others who might have hurt you? Our wounds, wherever they might be, they're our battle scars. They're not to be removed or forgotten. Instead, they show what God's grace can do when we let his mercy in. Amen.